Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And I'd like to continue on with responding to Patreon friends' favorite films list. So I have a Patreon page. The link you can find it in the description, also at the descriptor of my YouTube channel, and I invite Patreon members to submit to me their favorite films lists in the hopes that I would then be able to respond in kind to such lists in video form, which is what I've been doing. This has been going on for several months, and so I was very late in responding to a number of them, so I apologize for that, but I've been doing my best to make up for that. So here I am, and I believe, based on my own count of all the lists that I've received up to now on the Patreon page, I'm almost caught up with responding to all the lists I've received thus far. So I'd like to continue on with a couple more here today, and if that's okay. So they're all great, by the way. And also, if anyone is interested, if you're not a Patreon member yet, please check out my Patreon page. It's again, the link is in the description. No pressure, you don't have to do that if you don't want to. There's free membership, there's also paid membership. The paid members have access to more content that's available there, but there's also content available for people who want to sign up for free. But anyone who is a Patreon member, you can submit to me through the Patreon page your list, and I'd be very happy to respond as best as I can. It's been a great pleasure to go through these, and I'd like to continue this going forward. In that spirit, let me go to the next, or one of the next ones that I received. And this is from Mike Ainsley. So hello, Mike. It's nice to see you. It's nice to talk to you the other day, by the way, at the live stream. So thank you very much for that. And also thank you very much for being a Patreon member, and thank you for this list. So let's get right to your great comment and great list here. So you say, I would like to share a list of some of my favorite films in hopes of a video dedicated to my list. We have previously chatted on your live stream on August 24th, 2025. My cinema journey is very much still in the beginner's stage, and I hope to expand it. Here's the list in no particular order. From 1975, Jaws. From 1980, The Shining. From 1993, Schindler's List. From 1972, The Godfather. From 1984, This is Spinal Tap. From 1957, 12 Angry Men. From 1983, A Christmas Story. From 1995, 1999, and 2010, respectively, Toy Story, Toy Story 2, and Toy Story 3. From 1987, directed by Rob Reiner, 20th Century Fox's The Princess Bride. Kubrick's entire filmography from Paths of Glory onwards, not including Spartacus, because I do not view it as a Kubrick film. I know I already mentioned The Shining. From 1999, American Pie. From 2007, Superbad. From 1947, Miracle on 34th Street. From 1993, Mrs. Doubtfire. That's an attempt at a list of my favorite films from somebody who only recently started having a serious cinema journey. Hope you think it's a good list, and I'd love to hear your thoughts. Mike, thank you so much, and this is great. And I know we spoke during the live stream, and I know you are much younger than I, and you are very generous to share with us a little bit of details of your background during that live stream. So thank you so much. It was great to talk to you in person during that period. Thanks for deciding to join in on the live stream. I always appreciate when people join in and talk about their own cinema journey. So thank you for being one of the people to talk during the live stream. Thank you so much. And I love your list. I really do. I know we spoke about Kubrick films to a certain degree during that live stream, right? In the context of, say, Eyes Wide Shut and the recent release announcement from Criterion and the like. So, but let me just go through this really wonderful list. I don't know if I can talk about everything, but I'll talk about as many points as possible here. Let's see. Oh gosh, so many great points to go to. Where should we go? Okay, so Mrs. Doubtfire. Mrs. Doubtfire. This is from the early 1990s. This is a really interesting choice. I remember this. I remember enjoying the film very much when it was initially released. But I also remember at the time, it kind of got, I would say, my impression was it kind of got a fairly maybe medium to negative like reaction from the critics. It's hard to gauge these things. It wasn't like we had like Rotten Tomatoes or something back in the day, so it wasn't like there was a tomato meter or something of that sort. But I would say it got relatively, medium, maybe tepid to a negative a reaction from critics. But I think at the same time it was very positively received from audiences. So and I think it was if I remember correctly, it was for that year. I think it was quite a success commercially. So it was again from my own subjective or sort of anecdotal experience from the time. I think I remember it being a very popular film then, as it was initially received, and then popular now. So I think it's one of those memorable roles from Robin Williams, who was very much like at a type of height. I mean, in particular, Robin Williams in the '90s, I would say, was just really in so many films, really so many films. It kind of, I would say, I mean, as you know. Robin Williams' film career began in sort of full force in the 1980s, and then it reached a very interesting area, sort of mid-late 1980s. For example, with another film which I've seen. I was so fortunate to see in the theater when it was released, which is called Dead Poets Society, from the late 80s, and then. There would be comedies and dramas and a kind of whole range, which was quite expansive. Even within the realm of comedy, he would always try to do the sort of the Robin Williams brand of comedy, which is great, and then still try to forge certain maybe further frontiers within that front. So I would say Mrs. Doubtfire is definitely there. Definitely. That's a great choice. The Princess Bride. I'm so glad you mentioned The Princess Bride. I was so fortunate. Yes, I spoke about this, I think, in the context of... I have spoken about this, yes, in the context of a Criterion Collection re-release of this a few years back on the YouTube channel. So I think the video is still there. So I was very pleased with that, to be able to talk about it in the context of the Criterion release. So I'm glad you have it mentioned here as well. This is Spinal Tap too. I think I apologize. I don't know if we touched upon this during our conversation during that last live stream, but as we know, it's going to get a re-release from Criterion very soon, as of the time of this video. So that's very exciting news indeed. Let's see. I'm so glad you mentioned Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Toy Story 3. I love all those films. I would say I came kind of late to the Toy Story Pixar party. I didn't see it in the theater, but I kind of caught up with the great phenomenon that is Pixar somewhat later. But I'm still glad I was able to catch up. And then I think I can't pick a favorite out of those three because they're each in their own way so strong and so delightful. We each have complex stories. Although it's one of the great moments in Toy Story 3. I'll try to be as vague as possible about it, but the claw. I love that moment. So anyway, wow, what a great moment that is, and Lotso and all that. But anyway, let's see. Oh gosh, so many great places to go to here. So Miracle on 34th Street. This is a great choice. Miracle on 34th Street is one where I'm not sure. I don't watch that much broadcast TV anymore. But when I was a kid, before the internet, broadcast TV was the place to go in terms of watching movies, or one of the places to go in terms of watching movies and broadcasts of films. Miracle on 34th Street was a kind of staple, especially around Christmas time, or the holiday season, and so I would always watch it. When it was shown on TV, because it was like one of the most readily available films that you could watch on TV. You could always kind of rely on it being broadcast at some point. So I grew up with that kind of film appetite being satiated in that manner. So I was very fortunate in that respect. And let's see. American Pie. Oh, I remember the great kind of excitement that was surrounding American Pie just around the time of its release, and so I didn't see it in the theater, but I caught up with it much later, and I was kind of like taken aback in a lot of ways with American Pie on the one hand, but yes, it was that was also a kind of a great film watching experience. Superbad, I have a similar reaction to. I didn't see it in the theater, unfortunately, but I did catch up with it somewhat later at upon recommendation from some friends of mine, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And let's see here. Oh gosh, yes. Here we go. Your other parts of your great list here. Let's see. Let's go to. Okay, so The Shining. I think I might have mentioned a little bit about The Shining during our conversation. This is one where I also saw it, started watching it, or I remember knowing of it and watching it very, very early in my life when I was very young. So I've always, my life has always, been one where I've seen The Shining, that kind of things. I don't remember seeing it for the first time. So it's one of those films for me. But I look at it, and I might have mentioned this to you. I don't, maybe because of that, I don't look at it necessarily as a super scary film, as in that type of way. Not to say that it's any less effective for me. And I think I tried to articulate this during our live stream. I don't look at it as a super scary film. It's not the scariest film for me personally, but it is. I mean, there are some parts that are obviously very jolting, and there are some parts that are very horrific and quite disturbing. In that vein, however, I would say that The Shining is becoming more and more a work that I'm looking through a kind of domestic drama lens, a really wonderfully rendered domestic drama lens, the more I age, or the more I get older. So it's sort of changing in that way. So, and of course, I understand how it's regarded in many circles as a horror film. And so I understand those aspects. But again, for me, and again, not to take away the greatness of it, but I look at it maybe less as a horror film and more as an intense drama film. But at the same time, I mean, who's to say that it's necessary to separate those genre labels? And perhaps it's not even necessary to do that. So, in that way, I mean, there are some really great horrific and scary dramas, and then there are some really dramatic horror films. That's what I mean. So I think it falls in those realms very comfortably and obviously very, very effectively. One of the greatest effective films in that way. And so I think it's really great. Let's see here. I don't want to skip any. Okay, so Jaws. Jaws is another film where I've seen so many times I've lost count. Let's see. I remember. I mean, I have memories early on where my mom. And this is when I don't know, like 4 years old, 5 years old, something like that, where my mom would be talking so much about Robert Shaw's character in the film, in particular, Quint. So, and it would be the back of the VHS box of the rental. The VHS rental would be the picture of the one picture of the three of them. Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, and Richard Dreyfuss standing there looking out. The three of them. It's kind of a famous shot, standing on the orca, looking out onto the water. I mean, it's great. I remember it's one of the scariest films that I saw viscerally. I mean, in terms of the bloodshed that happens, and it's very bloody film, an incredibly bloody film. I think there's I remember being very fascinated as a kid by like how the film was able to show kind of the bite marks of the water raft. There's a scene involving a water raft and bite marks. And then there's a scene of it showing the sort of bite marks on the raft. You know, it's obviously no longer inflated because it was bitten into, but it was kind of, I was always fascinated by that. For some reason, I'm not sure. Let's see. And I was, for some reason, I'm maybe getting too much into the weeds here, but always fascinated by the line that happens early on, let Polly do the printing. I always thought what that meant, let Polly do the printing. And of course, I understood later what it meant, anyway. And there's also a scene where it's on the 4th of July in Amity, and I think you see like a video, like an arcade game, like, I don't know, like attack a fish or something, or shark attack or something, and it's a very 1975 type of video. I remember this happened once in my life. I went to an arcade and actually saw that game. At least I remember I did, and I was so excited. Oh, this is the thing that you saw in Jaws. It was really exciting. So that was the one. It was amazing to see that. Anyway. I mean, at least that's what I remember. I mean, it's been a long time. Again, as I get older, my memory's beginning to fade, unfortunately. But let's see. Schindler's List. Okay, Schindler's List. This was a film that I saw in the theater when it was initially released. And also, this is something that I was in high school at the time. This is also something that part of my high school, like English. It was English class. There's a unit in our English class that was devoted to Schindler's List and a broader a discussion of the historical context and import that the film is portraying. As we know. So it was a very fascinating period of, during that English class for me, because, I was, still very young, and, I was still learning about many things in the world and history. So it wasn't the first time, of course, about, learning of the historical past and World War II and the Holocaust. But this film had such an incredibly vivid and strong impact. And as you probably know, it also very much put in the public spotlight, sort of learning centers and further areas of study, or areas of further study with regard to the study of this period of history, which I think is, one of the very powerful lessons that I learned from a kind of film goer standpoint, as well as from a person from the position of wanting to and needing to study and understand the history. So I remember this film, obviously, for many reasons, having strong memories associated with this film. One of which being this feeling of being invited to explore more, and I think very rightly so, exploring more and more avenues and more resources being made available, like sort of archival. Documentaries and interviews being made available, associated with the stories and persons that were depicted in the film, the Spielberg-directed film Schindler's List, etc. So it was a very important, eye-opening period for me, for obvious reasons. So, And let's see. Okay, The Godfather I've mentioned a number of times already. It's a film that I find quite majestic. So I'm so glad that you've mentioned it here. I've spoken a little bit about The Godfather, perhaps, on the channel, not in any extensive way, but I've seen it so many times I've lost count. And it's one of those where I remember someone. I've done some YouTube shorts doing my impressions of Abe Vigoda in The Godfather, and also Luca Brasi in The Godfather. I can't do a good. My impression of Mo Green is really bad. I mean, gosh, what would I do for Mo Green? I talk to Barzini. So it's not, I mean, many people can do it much better than I do. But, gosh, I've done Marlon Brando, the impression of Marlon Brando. I think someone gave me a comment like, "This is terrible," or something like, I said it was a bad impression, and yes, I agree, it's a bad impression, or something like that. So anyway, but yeah. So I'm just by. I guess one of the things I wanted to suggest in those YouTube shorts is just how much I've seen The Godfather so many times, so every time I have an orange, I think of The Godfather. Maybe that speaks ill of me, if you know what oranges are associated with in the world of The Godfather. Like maybe I should steer clear of oranges, but I like oranges anyway. Anyway, so I'm sorry. Oh gosh, I don't think I've gone through everything. I apologize. I'm so sorry, Mike. This is a really great list. Look at what. So 12 Angry Men. 12 Angry Men. This is another film that I discovered fairly early in my life. I would say in my early teenage years, maybe a little bit earlier, perhaps. I watched it on VHS tape. I think it was a rental from the library. I knew nothing about the film, but I think the VHS box description on the back of the VHS box indicated it was like a murder mystery. And I was, and still am, a big fan of murder mysteries and whodunit thrillers. And so I was under the impression that 12 Angry Men was going to be a whodunit mystery thriller. Boy, was I mean, it is a kind of mystery in a certain way, but it's not framed as a whodunit thriller. But it was still a journey into getting to the bottom of what happened from a certain point of view, in the context of the jury room here in a court in New York. And then I remember being immediately just totally taken with the film. The way the camera moved through the space, the way the space was composed, and it was suddenly like manipulated, and then the camera would do things that I could, even at that young age, I could sense that's the wall would be there. How can you do it? I was fascinated with that kind of stuff, and sort of the rhythms of the performances. And I knew a number of the actors already. But there were others that I didn't know, but there were a number that I did know, Martin Balsam and Henry Fonda and Jack Klugman. So, from like other performances in films or TV, or Martin Balsam from Psycho in particular for me. So that was also something for me to connect with from a point of view of familiarity, but then just totally being taken with this world, and E.G. Marshall, etc., which I knew from whom I knew from among some great examples, Creepshow, but it was really great to see these performers, and I have to just tip my hat to every performance in that. Every performance is really quite stellar, really, really quite stellar. And so that was one that I just fell in love with immediately, and I just watched over and over and over again whenever I could rent that VHS tape. And it was a free rental because it was from the local library. So I would, any chance I could get, I would rent that and return it and rent it again when I could. It wasn't incessantly nonstop like that, but with certain periods in between, reasonably speaking. But that being said, it was one that I just memorized, or not memorized. Well, I guess I did memorize in a certain way some of the passages, the dialogue passages of that, and the rhythms and the cadences, there are many details about it, like the knife and looking through the window, with a passing L train in between, or the wearing of glasses, or the time it takes for the sound, which is the indication of the body hitting the floor above, and the time it takes for a witness to go from that sound to the door. And then open it, and then go into the hallway to see or to witness what that witness had suggested would be the young boy who is now standing accused of murder in this particular court. So and other details like that, and so I remember seeing it, and of course being swayed towards one viewpoint, which I think. It's set up, especially with the role of Henry Fonda. In this very valiant positioning. Then I should say later on, as I grew older, and as I began to traverse the world of law and legal studies and the like. I'm not a criminal lawyer. I'm not a criminal attorney. I'm not a trial lawyer. But there are, at a very, very general level, there are concepts of evidence law or criminal procedure, and also and related to that, aspects of what refers to things like burden of proof and degree, and also proportionality, that are very much embedded in the discussion points of 12 Angry Men, in the dialogue points of 12 Angry Men, such that I think it creates a more nuanced viewpoint of quote-unquote what is right and quote-unquote what is wrong. Right and wrong, end quote. And so my point is that for me, now I still am so much engaged with the film, but I can see that it's actually a much more gray area, in at least from the evidence interpretation perspective. And I think that's something that one can pick up after multiple viewings of it. There's actually a key point. I'll try to be as vague as possible, but there is a strong distinction between how should I put it? There's a strong distinction between the concept of or the idea of, say, quote unquote proving one's innocence, and also not meeting the burden of proof to show to lead to a verdict of guilty, and that's an example where actually the film and the characters in the film and the dialogue actually imperceptibly shift from one point or another, even the Henry Fonda character. And so you can see that it's like some people might imperceptibly say something like, you can't, proving he's innocent, which isn't the case necessarily. It's more towards whether or not the burden of proof has been met. With regard to evidence that's been gathered and presented at trial, whether the burden of proof has been met or not. So this idea of burden of proof in particular, I think it's kind of played around with in a very interesting way, and actually in a way that is very much inviting of a kind of good, robust discussion about what exactly does that mean, burden of proof, in the context of quote unquote guilt and quote unquote innocence. And actually, if you notice, there are some almost imperceptible changes in that type of perspective. On the one hand, you can say that the Henry Fonda juror is looking at it from the burden of proof not being met, but then at other points you could argue that his character is looking at it from this is proof that he's innocent, which is a completely different, not completely different, it's a different a proposition to make. It's not unrelated, but still a different proposition to make. And so you can argue whether that is indeed a legally sound positioning to be had, or is it legally unsound? Now, it could be persuasive from a kind of almost, persuasive, what's the phrase, soapbox type of debate performance. And indeed, also, a lot of the aspects of 12 Angry Men have to do with debate performance. But you have to remember that debate performance is not always going to be consistent with quote unquote legal theory or criminal law theory. But it is a grand debate performance, that's for sure. But in any event, but again, and I think there are some points that are some key points. Okay, I'm so sorry. I'll just say one other thing, which is, I remember. I'll be as vague as possible about this point. I love this film so much, 12 Angry Men, and I think the more my views on it have sort of changed and have been added to over time, which I think for me, it just shows how wonderful that film is. You can watch it over and over again and gain new perspective every single time, potentially. One of the things is there's a bit, if you remember the film, there's a bit about a witness and there's a bit about a witness and marks on the nose. And this point is interpreted, I think, almost completely within the group the group of jurors in that juror room. One way. One of them, actually, the Lee J. Cobb juror character, tries to maybe suggest other interpretations of that. Now, I know that there are other bits of, I wouldn't say evidence. There weren't really evidence as evidence presented in court. That wasn't a piece of evidence that was presented in court. It was more so the appearance of a witness on the stand. But other traits of the witness on the stand were recalled, and let's say trait number 1 and trait number 2 were then combined to have the jurors in that juror room lead to a particular conclusion about what that witness about not the witness, but what the witness's testimony meant. And so in a way it was along the lines of trying to, what the phrase is impeaching the witness, or say impeaching the witness testimony. But it's a kind of it's a really fascinating point, because whether or not that is indeed kind of an acceptable approach to impeachment, or whether it's too far removed to be considered quote unquote legitimately in the context of the juror room. That's something, I'm not, as I say, I'm not an evidence expert or a criminal lawyer, so I'm not sure. But I would say that at the very least there is more room for robust debate than meets the eye, at least initially, or maybe in the context of what was available during the running time of the film. Let me put it that way. So I'm sorry, I'm just rambling here at this point. But this is just my way of saying that it food for thought constantly whenever I watch that film now. So I'm very happy about that whenever I watch 12 Angry Men. Okay, I'm so sorry, Mike. I'm just going way overboard here, so I will stop here. Thank you so much for your great list. Thank you for submitting it here through the Patreon. Thank you for submitting it through the Patreon page. I really appreciate it, Mike. It was great to talk to you, and I hope I have the chance to talk to you again. And to my dear Patreon friends, to Mike and to my other Patreon friends, thank you so much. So until we see each other again, please continue to be happy and healthy and well. And please keep on watching a lot of great, great, great movies. So until the next video, my dear friends, stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.